Hi, John Griffith, Associate Professor from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. What's going on in the fire service? Is there any change? Absolutely, there's a ton of change going on. You've got mission changes that are literally rocking your world. And here's an example. Between now and 1986, you're literally making a run on almost 1 million fewer fire calls than you did. That's right. 30 years ago, the fire service actually made a run on almost 1 million more fire calls for actual fires, than they do in the latest data that was provided by the NFPA. Okay, so when you think about that, where were the rest of the calls? Well, again, 30 years ago, 54% of those calls were medical calls. Now it's 64%. And so literally, if you looked at all the calls that fire departments respond to, guess what? 92% of the calls fire departments typically go on when the bell rings are something for other than fire. 4% are fire, the other 4% are for mutual aid. Big change, big change. So now, all of a sudden, we're dealing with medical calls. And the question is, do you send a fire engine to every call? That's one question. Who do you send? Or do you send an ambulance with medical personnel to that call? And what are the ramifications, the legal ramifications of sending just an ambulance with medical people to the call? Sounds like we need to have good protocols out of dispatch. Sounds like everybody needs to be on board. And if we make this change, this is just one of the things you're dealing with. If we make this change, what legal implications are there? What implications are there to outfitting that new fire station you're building across town? Do we buy as many engines? A lot of fire chiefs think we need to rethink our vehicle mix. Instead of buying so many engines that cost $500,000 to $1 million per copy, we still buy some engines that we need, but instead of buying additional engines, maybe we mix in some of that medical vehicle capability. Here's another thing we've got a problem with. We've got a problem with PTSD. Because when you go out on a fire call every single day, or an emergency call every single day, the person you're helping, typically that's the worst day of their life, the worst day they're ever going to have. So we did a survey. Dr. Donna Roberts and myself did a survey of fire chiefs, officers, and firefighters at the National Professional Development Symposium Conference at the National Fire Academy. And here's what we were told. Survey takers told us that they believe 95% of firefighters suffer from PTSD. And all firefighters, nobody disagreed with this, would benefit from mental health services. About half said that the mental health services that they could get right now are adequate. 65% said that treatment options should be both internal and external to the fire station. And 75% said, that's 3/4, the worst calls I have to go on involve children and babies. And so you're dealing with all of this, all of going to these calls, dealing with people experiencing the worst day of their lives, and you can take it home with you, and it builds and builds and builds. No wonder that people have PTSD. No wonder we have trouble sleeping at night. One firefighter said, absolutely, I'm a PTSD survivor and I've used mental health services. People should be able to access services where they feel most comfortable. Mental health services should be provided externally. Get out of that environment, remove the cloak of invincibility. So look at all you're dealing with. Just the mission change from fighting more fires to fighting fewer fires and doing more medical calls. And you get into the areas of what vehicles do we send to emergency calls? How do we outfit new fire stations? How do we take care of our firefighters regarding mental health and PTSD? These are all being driven by mission changes. And that's what you're going to talk about in this course. I'm John Griffith, Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. Stay safe.